Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hello, my sweetness. Yes, and I'm all ready for this loaded topic.
Yes, I'm glad I gave you enough time to think about it. This week's topic starts off with advice you gave people that actually was bad advice.
I plead the fifth.
Okay, I'll start. One of the advice, and well, this one's a little.
Okay, I know your bar mitzvah. Yes, your bar mitzvah. I'm sorry about that.
That I don't care about that.
I'll fill in the audience. What happened was your father wanted the bar mitzvah at 4 o'clock. I said, no, that's too early. Let's make it for, I think I made it with 5 or 6 at 5 o'clock. And then it turned out, this was really the school's fault. They turned out to be the same time as another boy in your class. So a lot of your friends just came very quickly and then had to leave very quickly. And the school really should have coordinated things. Like they, by the way, they cleaned up their act later on. They did later after. I think they probably got so many complaints that after you were bar mitzvah, from then on they would coordinate the bar mitzvahs to make sure that nobody was scheduled at the same day.
Yeah, so you kind of brushed over some of the details. It wasn't the time, it was literally the date. There were 3 other bar mitzvahs at the same time on the same date that were happening in the same class. And everybody just was able to have maybe 10, 15 minutes each, really, at each bar mitzvah. And I couldn't even stay for my whole bar mitzvah because when it came close to the end, I had to leave because I was going to another friend of mine's bar mitzvah. It's funny because we joked around about it afterwards, how ridiculous it was. The only thing that upset me was just more of like, you want your friends to be there and no one was around. And when it came to giving the bar mitzvah speech, and I was hoping that I'd give it and people would listen, all I saw was a bunch of old faces and like no one in my class was there. So I was giving a speech to people I had no idea who they were. I think my rabbi was only able to stay for a hot minute and then leave because he was the rabbi of all the other kids as well. So no one was really there to listen to my bar mitzvah speech. That was the only thing that I felt that was just upsetting. But whatever, it is what it is. Life goes on. It's so many years ago, But I was talking about another piece of advice you gave me growing up. I think it's kind of weird because I'm kind of experiencing it now, seeing children like with my nephew and a few other people that I watch ever so often. When another kid makes fun of you, you told me as a kid to just ignore them. And it's a kind of interesting piece of advice because if you ignore them, you're right, it takes away their power. And as an adult, it's very easy. It's very easy. Like I'm online or I'm dealing with somebody, face to face, and someone says something stupid or obnoxious or annoying, I just ignore it. I don't have to respond. I don't have to give them anything. But as a kid, it's kind of difficult because there's this weird like animalistic pecking order that you have to like get involved in. So I don't know. That's just a small one.
See, the reason that this topic of bullying, this is a major topic among a lot of people, especially now, and because a lot of schools, you have a whole movement now where people have had it and they're really trying to address the problem. Years ago, like one of the talk show hosts said something. He said when he was growing up, the way he handled bullies is to beat the living daylights out of them. And I hate to say it, but that is the only thing. I've seen situations where, I hate to say it, but that's the only thing that will stop a bully, is really just pounding the living daylights out of him and saying, you try to bully me again, man, you're going to be dead next time. It's just a sample what you're going to get. The problem is, though, that in schools, that even if you've got a kid that's making your life miserable and is bullying you and really pushing you around ever, if you use your fist, unfortunately, you're the one that gets disciplined, not the bully. You're the one that gets disciplined. You're the one that gets suspended, and I just, and I knew that as a reality. And unfortunately, I didn't, I want my kids to succeed in school. You know, I want you to succeed. I want you to be in school. I want you to get the learning. And I didn't want to see you suspended in any way or having to face disciplinary proceedings. And that's why I told you, as long as you don't use, as long as you ignore them, use your fist, whatever, don't use your fist, don't, get violent, because that's the consequence. It's going to happen. You're going to be the one that's going to be disciplined, not the kid that was bullying you. And a lot of parents have spoken out about this and said the same thing. Like, look, these kids can make my kid's life totally miserable, and constantly be, putting them down and coming after them and yada yada. And we go to the school, we complain, we go to the teacher, and nothing is done. And finally, when my kid can't take it anymore and beats up this kid, who gets punished? Not the bully, my kid.
Well, it's funny you said that because I was having disciplinary issues with some cases with Yona at this kid, where
Ooh.
what happened was Yona was having these problems with these kids in shul, where kids were making fun of him, putting him down, calling him names. At one point, a group of kids were telling him that he wasn't Jewish because he was touching a bike, and the bike is muktzah on Shabbos. You can't touch it, and therefore you're not Jewish. And he comes up to me and he's like, "These kids are making fun of me. These kids are putting me down. Please, can you help me?" And like, his father isn't really there in shul, he's doing other stuff. So I'm really his own thing. So what kind of happened was, like, I went ahead and I spoke with the kids. I tried to get their names. They weren't, like, not going to tell me their names. And I told one of the kids that he was a coward for going ahead and, for doing that, for calling my nephew a non-Jew, for, you know, for touching a bike. And this was like 2 weeks ago. The kid went off fine. End of story. Rosh Hashanah time comes along. I go ahead and, like, I'm sitting there listening to Chazanas in shul. It's coming to the end of the day. I'm exhausted. So I step outside and I went ahead to go ahead and take a break. And as I'm taking a break, someone asked me, like, "Oh, are you Sadia?" I'm like, "Yes." And it's this woman who just starts berating me and yelling at me and screaming at me for telling her kid that he's a coward for what he did to Yona. And I asked him, like, "What do you want me to do?" She's like, "Oh, get his father." I'm like, I can't get that information from him. How can I get his father? As an adult trying to deal with all these things, and this is a very common issue with, people in my synagogue, at least, where it's like you have these kids running around, running amok, and, like, the parents can't even, like, be in charge of the kids, because each kid has a parent that you have to go ahead and find, that you have to go ahead and bring out. There's just, it's nowadays it's nearly impossible. I remember being in shul, being a kid, and having plenty of parents discipline me. It wasn't just Tati; it was plenty of other parents. So I find this just ridiculous, but that's just the way it is. I'm very curious to see where parenting is going to go. I was speaking to Pesci, and she was saying that, like, oh, they do play dates nowadays. You don't run off to your friend's house. You have to set up a whole appointment. And I just find that ridiculous. I just don't find it, that, like, why can't you just go to the person's house and just hang out with them and play games and whatnot? Why do you need, like, an appointment from 2 to 3? We'll be available. I don't know. I just find it a little insipid.
It's interesting how, like, you were talking about parents not being there to discipline their kids. When I was growing up, not in Baltimore City, that was when I was younger, and we had a lot of kids in our neighborhood that all played together. But moving out to the county, to the suburbs, I found that there was a certain, say it, the kids out in the suburbs um, were nastier. And these teenage kids would hang around in the corner and they had their little cliques. And if you walked by them and you weren't a member of their clique, you got called names, you got teased, pushed, shoved, yelled at, just, really bullied if you were not part of that particular clique that was hanging in the corner. It got so bad that the parents decided to have a meeting with, I think it was a psychologist or something, that those, because some of the parents were really upset that their kids were being so bullied like this by these cliquey kids that were hanging out in the corner. This is during the summertime when all the
Yeah.
kids were out and there was no school in the evening hours. So the parents of the kids that were basically the bullies, they started to yell, and nothing's wrong with my kid, and why are we having this meeting, and yada, yada, yada. And the psychologist is trying to explain stuff to them and tell them, listen, you got to you got to talk to your kids, got to take a firmer hand. You got to watch your kids more, talk to them, make sure, how important it is not to bully other kids. You know what you're talking about, nothing's wrong with my kid yet. Finally, the psychologist, my mother came back from the meeting. She said the psychologist got so frustrated, he just yelled at the parents, this is why your kids are acting like this, because look at you.
Yeah, that's the other point. Like, we dealt with this really bratty kid. Sure enough, his mother was a bratty person, But back to crappy advice that you gave. I'm trying to think more bad advice you gave.
See, you can't come up with anything.
No, I just repressed it or got over it. I can't remember. Trying to think of anything.
The one thing, by the way, interesting thing that I did though was
What?
there was this one particular ringleader in the neighborhood that was really, really making my life miserable. I was 13, and I was very, me, I've always been very gutsy. Do you believe I went to her house and I spoke to her mother? I was only 13 years old. I remember sitting there living. I said to her mother, excuse me, Mrs. Such and such, may I sit and talk to you a minute? She goes, sure. And the mother was very nice. She sat down in the living room with me, and I told her exactly what her daughter was doing to me and how it made me feel, and how I can't even walk around the neighborhood without her daughter and her friends, bullying me around and calling me names. And could she please talk to her about it? And the mother was really nice. The mother said, certainly. She says, she was not negative with me. She was very positive, very agreeable, and said yes, that she would talk to her daughter about it. And things did get better after that. Interestingly enough, as I'm getting older, I do come across people that I grew up with. And a lot of these kids that bullied me, that teased me, you would never know as adults that these were the same people. Because as adults, they are the nicest people I've met. I'm not kidding. It's hysterical. I even became very good friends with one of them as an adult.
Really?
Yeah. And except for one, there was only one girl out of the whole group that I've met who, as an adult, was like a very miserable, depressed individual. She never married, no marriage, no kids, no nothing, and just had a very sad, depressing attitude. But she was the only one of the whole group that I've met that, somehow could not, like I say, could not, mature and go beyond, which is maybe why she was such a bully.
I'm still stuck on some bad advice you gave me.
See, like I said, you can't think of anything. See,
well, I have a few, but I don't want it to come and bite me in the butt in a way. It's like, I think it's a terrible advice. I think it's stupid. I think it's ridiculous. But I guess I understand why parents give that advice. It's like a lot of times parents give very generic advice where it's like they won't take it, but like they'll say it because it's something that's right to say.
Well, I do remember a couple of cases of bad advice that I gave my kids. I thought was good advice at the time. What happened was one of your younger sisters had a friend in school, and she and this friend got into some horrible, miserable fight. And she felt badly about it, and she kept trying to apologize, and the kid wouldn't accept her apology. So I had an idea that she go to like the Goodwill store, buy some sort of really cute, adorable little stuffed animal or something, a little present, and put a note on it. Please forgive me. Accept this present as a token of my sincere apologies. Please forgive me, and put it in her locker.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. The girl the next day just took the toy in front of everybody and just threw it back at her and told her, no, I'm still not forgiving you. And the other girls in the class ran over. They go, it was such a cute little animal. It was like this little, it was a little bear. It was a little mommy bear and a baby bear that were dressed in these cute little prairie dresses.
Yeah.
It was so cute. And girls were running over and begging your sister, oh, can I have it? Can I have it? Can I have it? It's so cute. Can I have it? They couldn't, even the other girls couldn't believe that this girl just rejected this gift and, wouldn't forgive your sister. And I said, I apologized to you. I said, I'm so sorry. I really thought this was good advice and this would really patch things between you. But okay, it looks like I was wrong. I'm sorry.
So I guess to switch it up then, what advice have you given us as kids that you would never take?
I would not take. Oh my gosh. I can't think of the only thing bad advice I can think that I gave you. Your ex. Your ex. I mean, I don't know if I ever gave you advice. Oh yeah. I was the one that started the ball rolling when I told you that I wanted you to walk her home that night because I didn't want her walking home alone. And you
Oh.
wound up marrying her, and the whole thing was disastrous. Anyways,
I guess so. But I'm thinking,
about that.
I'm thinking of advice that like it didn't like even at that time when you gave that advice, you really weren't really giving something you would take.
Gosh, I can't. I'm trying to think. I can't. Think. There's one. Well, there's one type of advice one time that one of your older sisters felt very badly about this this boy that she liked, and he went out of town and she missed him and everything. So I suggested she said like this guy had like, how can I say it? He had like kind of like a slight overbite. He looked like
Okay.
he actually looked like a rodent. So I suggested she get a pet gerbil. And I suggested you get a pet gerbil that reminded her of him. And so she got this he had sandy hair, so she got the sandy colored pet gerbil. And unfortunately the thing died.
Just like their relationship.
Yes, as a matter of fact. No.
Good stuff. I'm trying to think. What about any bad advice your friends gave you?
Bad advice my friends gave me. Da, 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 da. Computer processing, please wait. Bad advice my friends gave. They told me to stop. They told me that I should start obeying my parents more and listening to them, which I thought was lousy advice. Because hey, me, I said, I wasn't about to listen to my parents. It stifled my style.
That's not good enough.
I was the type of kid who, when I had friends who, like, were couldn't go someplace because their mothers wouldn't let them, or the fathers wouldn't let them, or the parents wouldn't give them permission, I would say to them, "You're actually obeying your parents? Are you nuts?"
Yeah, I don't know. That's not good enough. I need something like, oh, you should do this, and then you just do it and it went terribly wrong.
You should do this. What should I do? I'm trying to think. I cannot think of anything that I'm one of these. I guess I'm one of these people. How can I say it? More of an independent, free spirit, you might say.
So people gave you
Oh
advice and you
yeah,
never took it.
yeah. I got a piece of very bad advice that I took, and boy, do I regret it.
What was it?
I was doing a program on Taras Mishpacha.
Yeah.
Oh, did I feel badly about this one? And I was meeting with a group of women. We were trying to come up with a catchy title for the Taras Mishpacha program, and this woman came up with an idea of, is sex dead in the Jewish community?
Okay.
And we thought it was so catchy, we decided to do it, and boy, did it backfire.
How bad?
Very bad. The Lubavitcher Rebbe at a Fabringen said that that for the Taras Mishpacha programs, please keep the titles sneistic.
You got the Rebbe to say something. Oh my gosh.
Not just to say something, but next time I went to Crown Heights and was standing there in the shul, the Rebbe came by me and gave me such a look that I wished the floor would have opened up and swallowed me. He gave me a look like, lady, you are in deep doo-doo.
This is worse than Tati eating the lekach cake before Yom Kippur. Oh my gosh. Jeez Louise. I guess our family's just naturally born to do this. We don't even try to. Because I was thinking about like because what happened was when that lady yelled at me, it threw me off because like I was having such a good Rosh Hashanah and she just wailed on me and like was screaming at me the whole freaking time. I was just so annoyed that like this was Rosh Hashanah day one. It destroyed me until like after the day after Rosh Hashanah. I was just still so like annoyed and livid.
So maybe that took care of any pain you were supposed to get for the rest of the year.
Hopefully, who knows? At least I was able to go ahead and say the Sefer Tehillim 7 times plus 90 pesukim. So I take pride in that. Wow, I can't believe. Wow, geez, Louise, you never said that before. You've never mentioned that. Wow, good thing I was digging. Geez, Louise, oh my gosh. But in general, though, did you took the class, right? You had the class, or
we had the presentation, but it was snowing that night. Very few people showed up.
Yeah.
And somebody who came also voiced that objection to that particular title, and he wanted to know who was this woman wanted to know who was the person who thought of it. And the woman who thought of it was in the audience, and she raised her hand and stood up and said, listen, she took responsibility for it because I was the one that came up with that title. I mean, we just thought it was such a catchy title and would really, like get everybody's attention. And, how can I say, our intentions were good, but it was not the way to go.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I go on these like Reddit posts, or I'm reading on these like Instagram posts, various like websites that are trying to have catchy titles for their articles, and some of them are like like kind of frustrating. One of them just recently, 2 of them actually. One of them was about this person was like, oh, I'm a convert to Judaism, but I'm also an atheist, and the whole article was explaining their journey, and I'm like, shut up, you can't have one without the other. The whole point of conversion is you have to accept that there's only one God in this world. If you don't accept that, then you're not a convert. You didn't do anything. Another article is talking about like, oh, tattoos are taboo. Maybe like this concept of embedding jewelry into your arm is okay. Like it was just being catchy for the sake of being catchy, to get clicks, to make a stir up, to get people to start talking about it. And the problem is nowadays people are realizing it's a lot easier to get people upset than to make them happy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I remember our pediatrician one time, we were talking about news items being very, very depressing. And he said to me, let's face it, he says, they don't make money by saying everything is okay.
Yeah.
It's there's this with this I was listening to an interview with somebody who had been a reporter for one of the big news the magazines, or it might have been a magazine or a newspaper. And he said that when he would object sometimes to them embellishing so much negativity, the editor said to him, if it bleeds, it reads.
Yep. Yep.
So what's interesting about like say the news media in general, how I remember years ago during one of the Israeli-Arab conflicts, when they were starting to like give back land, and they were, the Arabs were demanding more land and more territory and yada yada, and the news media was showing all these pictures, putting the Jews in a really bad light.
As usual.
And but the pictures were really strange. I mean, you could tell one picture, you could tell looked very doctored. It was you see these women in a marketplace, and some are Arabs. So, it's like just a group of women in the Middle East, a marketplace, and there's a man standing in front of them who looks like he's waving a whip or something or a billy club, and it says, "Israeli police terrorize Arab women in marketplace." And the way the picture looked, like I said, it looked photoshopped. It really did. And then there was another picture in one of the magazines showing these two men standing next to each other talking. And the caption of the picture read, "Israeli soldier tortures Arab prisoner." And it didn't look like anybody was being tortured. It looked like just two men in blue jeans and sweatshirts standing there talking to each other. Like nobody was putting their hands on anyone. They were just standing there talking. Then a friend of mine in Israel told me she once saw there was a bombed out, it was an Israeli Jeep that had been, that had hit a, what's that called? One of those bombs that they place, and soldiers were killed, everything, and it was the
Landmine?
Jeep that, it was, no, it was, what's that called? One of, there's ID something, the certain initials that they use for it.
IED?
Is that it?
I think I
And
don't know.
so they, she sees this man with a camera going past this Jeep, this bombed out Jeep. And he says to a group of Arab kids, "Hey, you want to be in a picture?" And of course, these little kids, yeah, he goes, "Okay, get into the Jeep. I'll take your picture." So they got into the Jeep. He takes her picture. And she said 2 days later, and I think this must have been the New York Times magazine.
Of course.
And she sees the picture, and the caption reads, "Arab children look at bombed out wreck of family car."
Yeah. To put a modern twist on it, unfortunately there was this 7-year-old Palestinian boy who like randomly died, and they're not sure what happened. So they're trying to figure out what it was, but no one knows. But all these news articles are now doing this whole thing where the title goes, US demands Israel probe on death of 7-year-old Palestinian boy. And like it could be one thing or another, but the way they charge it, the way they set it up it's just typical propaganda focus, trying to make everything look bad. And it's, I don't know, I get annoyed by it. I'm trying to shrug it off and not care, but whatever.
I know it is upsetting. It's very, very upsetting when, anybody from any ethnic group feels that way when the media is trying to portray their ethnic group as some sort of like in some sort of negative mode.
It's also like there was an article that came out a while ago where they asked Daniel Craig, he's the actor that plays James Bond, so he's no longer playing James Bond, and he never liked playing James Bond. He got it, he didn't want it, he signed up for like 5 films, I think, and he did the 5 films, and now he's done. So an interviewer asked him, "Would you want a woman to play James Bond?" And he said she should probably choose a better role, because he was just so done with it. And the whole media did this whole thing of Daniel Craig doesn't want a woman to play James Bond.
Oh, I'm sure that was the way I'm sure they loved swinging it that way.
So it's just,
and
the thing is, people are slowly realizing that it is just ridiculous. It is just totally like, it's getting to, I think it's getting to a boiler point. And the reason why it hasn't been like that before is because we weren't given it 24/7 so much. You might have like news sources or newspapers, but now we have it on our phone 24/7 getting the news. And like they're just trying to get you to click on an article, so they're going to have a really nasty headline here and there just to get you to click. And that's why for me, whenever I see like a headline that looks like it's really nasty, I ignore it. I don't look at it. I go ahead and find something else or find another way to figure out what happened and not go out of my way not to click on the article.
Yeah, I've noticed that I've seen that lately, where a lot of articles that are on YouTube, like, I can say it, something like something really flashy, like this will be like this was the last time this man was seen alive, yada yada, and then you go and you click it on and you watch the video, and it is so unlike what the title was.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I noticed that too. By the way, in some of these advertisements now, um, 5 foods if you have arthritis that you should keep away from. So okay, I've got arthritis. I click it on, and it's like, "Hello, I am Doctor Such and Such, and let me tell you about 5 foods that you should definitely keep away from if you have arthritis." But first, let me tell you about myself. First, let me tell you about my organization. First, let me tell you about my practice. First, let me tell you about your body. And I'm thinking, damn it, man, just tell me what are the 5 foods and stop this already. Get to it already. And they're going for 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Oh, yes. And now the 5 foods. But I have now this nutritious pill that I have produced that is from residue or from like whatever ingredients that you take. This will help you with your inflammation against these 5 foods, and you just, if you buy it now, you get to have a bottle for free. And I go, thanks, I was okay, bye. Now I'm getting to the point where I see these articles. Oh, 2 foods you should keep away from. 2 foods that will kill you with high cholesterol. I just ignore it now. I don't even bother listening to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People are quickly see. Some people are slowly learning it, and the younger people are quickly learning it. I think the younger crowd is figuring out what's real and what's not, what's fake. Like, I used to like watching these satisfaction videos of people cleaning, and I thought it was so cool that they had these like a dirty carpet, a dirty rug that gets like cleaned very well.
Uh-huh.
But then I can see some videos where it's like they purposely made that extremely dirty to clean it. Or I liked watching this restoration video set. This guy just
Uh-huh.
restoring random objects that he would get. And then I noticed that like it was only rusty around certain areas. And I started scrolling down, and people are like, he actually dips it in this chemical that rusts everything. So it looks like it's all old, but it really is brand new. And then he just brushes off the rust. So like a lot of these, like people are just figuring out more and more. It's like there's fake stuff all the time that gets all these hits, but you know what? People are coming to their senses and realizing, no, that's all fake. That's ridiculous. That's not real.
Well, in my generation, when I was growing up, and in my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation, before big media started, there was a saying: "You can't believe everything you read in the newspapers." And I remember there was a series on television called The Real McCoys about this farm family in California.
Yeah.
And there's Grandpappy Amos and the girls and the boys of the family. No, this is the Real McCoys. Yul Brenner, not Yul Brenner. I forgot the guy's name. Walter Brenner was the guy's name. He played Grandpappy Amos.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one episode where they wanted, I forgot what the whole thing was about, but the man that was in charge of the local newspaper wanted to really publicize this type of controversy that was happening with with the McCoys, with this particular family.
Yeah.
And so he had them all set up. Like Grandpappy Amos was in jail he had done something, and they put him in jail for a couple of days, just to teach him a lesson. So he says, "Here's what you do." He says, "Grandpappy Amos, I want you to sit with your head in your hands behind those bars." He says, and he turns to his daughter-in-law and son, and he says, "Now I want you to." He says to the wife, he says, "I want you to put your head against your husband and put your arms around and pretend like you're crying." And he says to the son, to the adult son, "I want you to pretend like you're comforting your wife." And he turns to the grandson. He says, "I want you to go over to the jail cell and put your arms out to your grandfather like you want him to come out." And he took the picture and he ran it in the newspaper, and he blew up this whole story that was way, way out of line with what's really happened. And so finally, when it came, I think they had some sort of meeting. So it was a big public meeting. And Grandpappy Amos brings the newspaper, And he decides to put this newspaper man in his place. And he says, this is an example of how you can't believe everything you read in the newspapers. And then he told the entire community the truth of what really happened in this particular situation. And so now the same thing can be applied to our present day media, YouTube, you name it, television, radio. Can't believe everything you hear on TV or radio or YouTube.
No, but you have to use common sense and you have to do your own research. It's just like anything, you have idiots nowadays with like QAnon and whatnot talking about like that the president. I think there was this whole idea in Canada. There's this QAnon part in Canada that they were saying that the whole paying for water and electricity is a scam and not pay for it because you're going to get it automatically. And like people stopped paying for their water and electricity. And then they ran out of water and electricity. It's like you just have idiots. There is a sucker born every minute. There's an idiot like every 2 seconds. And that's just the way the world works.
But did you remember a few years ago this thing about if you take aluminum foil and put it in the microwave and turn it on, it's supposed to turn into silver or something. And there were people that did it and short-circuited their microwaves.
Jeez Louise. Like I think there was also, oh shoot, you were talking about microwaves and short. There was something I forgot. Oh shoot, I lost track. But yeah, no, there's just plenty of stuff that's just stupid over time. Sorry, I just remembered one thing. Was the idea of like if we had all the information in the world, then clearly there'll be less stupid people, and then we're proven wrong. Yeah.
Yes. Boy. So I remember the very first time that we used a microwave in our lives.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you were born then.
No.
It was like the mid-19. It had been, no, you were not. It was mid-1980s. A friend of ours. I wasn't about to spend money on a microwave, so a friend of ours gave us her old microwave because she got a new one, and we didn't know how to use it, and we decided to microwave potato latkes.
Oh my gosh.
What can I say? The result, we took out the potato latkes. Some of them were black. Even those that weren't black, they were as hard as they turned to plastic.
Oh my
and
gosh.
we're looking at them and we start banging on the table with them. We go, oh well. We didn't know with a microwave, especially when you've got something with like potato latkes, whatever. It's only like 1 or 2 minutes. We thought it was okay, 5-10 minutes. We didn't know if it was like regular cooking. We didn't know any better.
That's always interesting. Like the first experience. Maybe we'll talk about that the next podcast because we're really running out of time. We only got a minute left.
Okay.
But the first experience of a new invention. We could talk about that a little bit.
Oh,
but that's because I remember when we first got the internet. And I also I'd be curious to know what did you notice when I know we first got the computer. I was young, but what was your experience when they just started integrating it into day-to-day life, for you? But that's all the time we have. I love you. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
That program is going to be hysterical. My first experiences with the computer. That's going to be hysterical.
For sure.
Okay, have a good Shabbos, darling. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I know you would like it, and my mother would too.